I'm a conservatarian, which I believe, essentially, I believe that people should be able to do whatever they want to do as long as it doesn't harm someone else. That's essentially my worldview. As I said, I believe America is the greatest country in the history of the world. I believe the Constitution is the greatest political document ever written. The Constitution was the first, and still to this day is, so that's really interesting, written by slave owners. So it's, well, of course I admit it, but you also have to look at truth is incontrovertible despite who writes it or the sins that they're engaging at the time. So it is a straw man red herring argument to attack the document, the text, or the ideas just based on the sins of the people that wrote it. So I noticed the number one critique of the U.S. Constitution, they say, well, it was written by slave owners. Sure, they were involved in horribly bigoted practices at the time, which eventually some of them regretted, actually, and they released some of their slaves towards the end of their life. Irrelevant. Talk about the ideas. Why is the Constitution the greatest political document ever written? Well, because the Founding Fathers were the first successful political rebels ever to give power back to the people instead of keeping power for themselves. They could have created a monarchy for themselves, the Jefferson, Washington, Hamiltonian monarchy that would have kept amazing amounts of people under perpetual power basically forever. So what did they do? They decentralized that power, and they said, we're going to give that power back to the people. And they said, well, let's study human history. Well, what happens when human beings get power? Well, usually a really bad person accumulates way too much power way too quickly, and that civilization goes through the traditional arc. They studied the Roman Empire, the Greek Empire, the Chinese Empire, the British Empire. They said, we're going to try something fundamentally different. We're going to have checks and balances. We're going to recognize natural rights. And because of that, they created the Electoral College, they created the House of Representatives, the U.S. Senate, but they also understood they didn't necessarily get it all right, which is why I love the 10th Amendment, the capacity for states' rights, the capacity to amend the U.S. Constitution. But also, if you look at the Bill of Rights, it recognizes that the rights come from God, not from government, and it's government's role to protect our, not to encroach our rights. It's the first political document ever written that says what government cannot do, not what government gives out. So you have the right to consciousness. Essentially, you can say what you want to say, how you want to say it, without being interfered by someone else. Essentially, my favorite amendment, the Second Amendment. Who loves the Second Amendment, by the way? We all love the Second Amendment. Love. Because you needed an amendment to protect all the others. The Fourth Amendment, a right to privacy, so on and so forth. The Constitution was not written for the times. It was written to stand the test of time. Because despite how technology continues to advance, human beings stay exactly the same. We are self-centered, broken by nature, envious, narcissistic individuals that will always try to serve our self-interest. The Founding Fathers realized that there was this pattern, so they developed a system of government that would decentralize the evil as far as possible and try to have the most representation imaginable. That's why the Constitution is the greatest political document ever written. And you've seen with it the copying across the world. Civilizations that copied the U.S. Constitution, even in its smallest sense, have seen an unbelievable advancement of political, economic, and human freedom beyond any sort of comprehension or any sort of neo-Marxist, postmodernist utopia that has tried to be created. Hey everybody, this is Charlie Kirk, founder and CEO of Turning Point USA. If you liked this video, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Turning Point USA.